Hey everyone, this is Jason Clemmons at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and you are listening to Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're coming to you live on this beautiful Tuesday evening, whatever day this is, September 19th. And I'm glad to be here, even though I don't know what day it is. Doesn't make any difference. We're going to still talk about health either way. But I'm glad to be here tonight. I'm glad to continue with what we talked about last night. We had a pretty good show last night and got some comments and feedback throughout the day today. So we're going to try to continue some of that. We are coming to you live from the Rock Health and Wellness Centers right here in Lubbock, Texas. We're also on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM, Lubbock Christian Nation. You can catch us on 987radio.com and on the Live 365 app anywhere in the world. So if you got some friends, family, someone that needs to hear about health, someone that might benefit from hearing about health. I know I got family all over the place that could benefit from hearing about health. And so if you got anybody that they can catch us on Facebook at the Rock Health and Wellness Centers. They can catch us on YouTube at Health from the Rock. That's a little tricky to get to. I've tried that a couple times today. Try to help some patients get to that. Just got to look for our logo, which is a circle with a tree and a rock in it. So if you look for that logo, you'll find us. You'll find that logo, and you can find us on YouTube. And then we're also on X. We should be live right now on all of those stations. And if you've got a question in tonight's show, please feel free to send us a text at 806-794-0400, and we'd be glad to get to you. And or you can send us a message through through Facebook or YouTube, and we should be able to get it here in the office. So we're coming to you from our office. I've been seeing patients all day long. We started this morning with our fitness classes at 6 a.m. We teach our fitness classes here in the office, and then we've been seeing patients throughout the day and getting our workouts in this morning. And now we're here talking about health and wellness. And one of the things that we have done, the girl in our office, the lady in our office, who is a fantastic human being, her name is Kim Van, and she's a hardworking lady, and she's a super cool lady, and she is heading up our nutrition program in our office. So if you have nutrition concerns, if you'd like to have a nutritional evaluation, that might be different, and I would argue that it will be different than any other nutritional evaluation that you've ever had in your lifetime, because one of the first things we do is look at your cervical curve. And I'll be willing to bet you that you did not get your cervical curve evaluated the last time you went through a nutritional evaluation. But we break that down for you exactly what that means. But we'd love to have you here in the office, and you can give us a call, and you can learn about yourself, learn about how your nervous system is working and what nutrients might be good for you. We had a couple of weeks ago, we had Dr. Joe Fraley from Ruidoso, New Mexico on the show. And I guess that was last Tuesday, actually. And one of the things that Joe taught me was about supplements is, how do you know they're working, and how do you know they're helping you, and how do you know that's really what you need? And so he kind of really convicted me of getting some technology in the office that we can actually test those things, some of those things, and see how your body responds to them, and make sure that your body is actually getting those nutrients that it needs. So that's part of our nutritional program that we have in the office. So if you have any interest in that, we'd love to have you. Just give us a call, and we'll get you taken care of as far as that goes. But one of the things that Kim is doing this week is she is putting out in our lobby, she's got a table set up, and it's got all the amounts of sugar that are on your favorite drinks. And so I thought that would be really cool. I was like, well, I just went over there a while ago, and I just picked up some of these deals of sugar. And this is the amount of sugar that's in a Red Bull energy drink, 27 grams of sugar. You can kind of see exactly what you're getting whenever you drink one of those drinks. And she just went through it. She's got them all broken down right here. Simply orange juice, 33 grams of sugar in 11.5 ounces. If you just imagine drinking all that sugar, and we all love it because it's great. We just like, man, we just want some of that sugar. It'll fire up our brains and fire those dopamine patterns, and we'll be all about it. This one here, this was a Coca-Cola, a 20-ounce Coca-Cola, 65 grams. It's actually a full container plus almost a half of another container that is all sugar right here. So every time you decide that you just got to have yourself one of those sugary sodas, you might want to think about that. And when you are buying them at the store and you're buying them for your family and you're buying them for your kids, you might want to think about that. Just if that's something that is concerned, health and wellness might be something you might be interested in. And then this one is great. Here's a grande pumpkin spice latte. That's real big in the fall, right? We're gonna just slam those grande pumpkin spice lattes. 52 grams of sugar. This whole vial is full of sugar. Let me see what else we got right here. Grande pumpkin cream cold brew, 31 grams. A sweet tea, large sweet tea, 43 grams of sugar, right there. Yeah, we got to have that sweet tea go along with that pecan pie or whatever it is that we're going to have that's got all that sugar in it. And then here we go, a large lemonade. She had to have two of these put together. That's a whole vial, and then about maybe a little bit more than a third of the next one. So, one of the things that really is bad for us when we start to study it, when we start to study health, is how much sugar we're drinking, right? And what are some of the things that we might do to increase our health? And one of them, just one simple thing right there, is just decrease the amount of sugar that you're drinking. And so might be a thought that you could get into. And some people will say, well, doc, don't worry about it, because I don't drink any of those drinks that are hang on one second. I don't drink any of those sugary drinks. I just drink the diet drinks. And somewhere on here I have got an article that I just looked up today about sugary drinks. I got so many articles opened up on my laptop right now that I can't find that particular article. But I'm going to find it here in just a second, because it talks about the risk of artificially sweetened drinks and strokes. There it is, right there. So this article comes to us from the publication Stroke. It's April 20, 2017, volume 48, page 1139 to 1146. Sugar and artificial sweetened beverage and the risk of incident stroke and dementia. And so they're going through this, and they're breaking down exactly. Used 2,888 participants aged older than 45 years of age for stroke, and 1,484 participants aged older than 60 for dementia. And the study extended for 10 years. And so they broke down the intake of total sugar beverages, the intake of sugar sweetened soft drinks, and the intake of artificially sweetened soft drinks. And they broke it all down, and I'll give you the short version of that. But basically, the upper end of the risk range, drinking an intake of artificially sweetened soft drinks essentially tripled the risk of suffering both ischemic stroke and Alzheimer's. And the upper end was 700% increase from deciding that you'll just use aspartame or sucralose or Splenda in your drink. So drinking your diet drink doesn't get you away from those sugary calories. That's something that we really want to think about when we come to the way that we are handling our sugar, right? So we just don't want to drink sugary drinks. That's just how it comes down to it right there. That's not good for us. And we just want to make sure that we're handling ourselves properly so that we can provide ourselves with the best opportunity to be as healthy as possible, so that we can shine our light bright into the world. I have an amazing story for today. One of the things I want to get to before we get into the show is one of my patients. She's 84 years old. She comes and gets adjusted every week, usually right after she goes to work out at the gym and does body pump and bar. And she was doing something core today, she told me, because she did body pump and bar yesterday. But she fell last week. She was coming out of an office, they had some, I guess, a tree root or something had grown up underneath the sidewalk and kind of pushed the sidewalk up, and she didn't see it when she walked out, and she caught her toe on that sidewalk and she fell flat on her hands. She didn't hit her face. She just hit her left knee and both hands, and she just popped right up and just went on with her day. And she was telling me today how she was like, it was a little traumatic because she was scared because she's afraid she hurt her knee because she's had her knees replaced, but she was afraid that she'd hurt herself, but she didn't. She didn't hurt herself at all. She just fell down. She got back up and she went on with her day. And I was like, that's really how we define health. We define health because I've tried that before and I've read all the studies and I've read all the people in the world that define health. And I have come to the conclusion that basically a simple definition of health is your overall fitness level that allows you to handle the activities of your day. Can you handle anything that's thrown at you today? And if you can, you're healthy enough. Like if you're not planning on running a marathon today, then you don't have to be healthy enough to run a marathon. It's like it's not what you're going to be doing today. And you never the thing about it is we never know exactly what we are going to be doing today. So we can fall anytime, and the question is, are we prepared when we do fall? And I just want to give a shout out to her. She knows who she is. And I just want to say, you know what? Good for you. You're 84 years old. You fell on your hands. She didn't break her arm. She didn't break her shoulder. She didn't break her knee. She didn't bust up her face because her hands were strong enough. Last year she said something to me about, how do I get this skin on the back of my arm? I don't like this skin on the back of my arm. How do I get this skin to go away? And it was really funny. So I said, well, you could do some work on some triceps. And so we laughed and she laughed and she's like, I don't know if I've got enough time left to get these triceps built up to make that skin go away. But she's been working on her triceps at 84 years old. She's been working on her triceps. So it was really cool. Is when she came in, she said, I fell and I hit my both hands on the concrete. And it was really interesting because she was coming out of a doctor's office, not mine, thank goodness, but she was coming out of a doctor's office, and the doctor saw her fall through the window, and then he saw her just pop back up. So he didn't worry about her, and anybody had his staff call her a little bit later and check on her, and she said, yeah, she said, I'm doing fine. And it was really interesting that the doc saw her, but he didn't think much of it because she just got right up and went on with her day. So good for her. Good for being prepared for whatever life threw at you, and good for you for being able to handle that. So that's just a cool thing that I thought that happened today that I wanted to share with everybody, because you just never know when that's going to happen to you, right? And the question is, are you prepared for it? And that kind of gets us to the continuation of some of the things that I wanted to talk about from last night's show. And I tried to do it very maturely. I tried to do it very non-confrontationally, and make sure that what we're talking about is about health. But over the weekend, I saw this post by the director of the CDC, and the post just talked about the post just talked about the vaccine, and the thing that the sentence that was said was, the new updated COVID-19 vaccine is the most effective way to drive your body, no, to give your body the ability to keep the COVID virus from causing you harm. I'm going to say that again because I didn't say it very clearly. The new updated COVID-19 vaccine is the most effective way to give your body the ability to keep the COVID virus from causing you harm. And what we talked about last night is, I'm not coming at the director, but I really would like to present an idea that might not be true for everyone. That might not be true for people that study wellness. If you're a wellness person and you study wellness and you want to know, you like, really? Like that's the number one way, that's the most effective way so that virus doesn't hurt me. And so That's what we talked about last night. And I want to make sure that I'm very clear. It's not within my scope of practice to treat your virus. That's not what we're doing. It is within my scope of practice to detect and correct your subluxations. And your subluxations means interference in your nervous system. And when you have disease, you have interference in your nervous system. I can promise you that. And when you have sicknesses, you have interference in your nervous system, or it's going to cause you to sleep all day long and you're not going to be able to get up and move around. And that's going to cause interference in your nervous system. So I can trace it back. I can map it back to that thing. And that's what I wanted to present last night, I don't want it to be confrontational because I think it's we've had enough of it. And maybe that's sensational, right? If I come on and I get all sensational and I create some sort of controversy, then people will listen and all that sort of thing, and then it'll get attention, so everybody will be happy. They'll think, oh man, now we got it going and all that stuff, right? That's not my game. And maybe it will be if we don't get enough attention here soon, but that's not what I've never been like that. I've never been that way in my whole entire life. I'm not the trash talker. I'm not the showboater. I'm not the guy that gets out there and get in front. But what I am is consistent and solid. And I'm not going to ever give up. That's something that's just not in my DNA. So when I'm talking about stuff like this, I'm hoping that I'm talking to you. I hope you hear me talk to you. Because I don't know how many people are watching or how many people will go back and watch, but I hope that you can look at the screen if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or X, or if you're listening to us on the radio. I hope you understand that the reason I'm doing this right now is because I'm trying to help you live a healthier life. And I don't agree with that sentence. I don't agree that that vaccine is the most effective way to give you the best chance of COVID not causing you harm. I believe you have an innate intelligence, and I believe you have an innate intelligence that's strong enough to handle what's thrown at you if you will put your body in an environment that's congruent with health. And I believe I think that's factual. And I don't want to come at the director because I think what I really believe is I think the director is saying what maybe she believes is true. I know that didn't really sound solid, but maybe the director thinks that's true, and maybe that's the best thing for her and her family. And if that's the best thing that she can do for her and her family, well, God bless her. Let her go ahead and live her life that way, and let her choose to make those choices for her and her family. And that this is the United States of America, right? If that's the choice that you want to make, go ahead. But I don't believe that, and I'm going to present some ideas to you. That's what we did last night. Is we presented some ideas, and I'm going to present some ideas to you tonight. I'm just going to keep going, and I can just keep going. I could probably do this same thing for an entire month or maybe 6 months. We could just go one after the other, after the other, after the other, and we could just keep going until we finally presented enough data to you that said, if you put your body in an environment that's congruent with health, you will express health. If you put your body in an environment that's incongruent with health, you will express symptoms to give you feedback to tell you that you're in the environment that's incongruent with health. And you will not be prepared whenever you face the viruses or the bacterias or anything else, a fall on a concrete sidewalk or a car wreck or leaning over and picking up a case of water. Whatever your thing might be, if you've got your body in an environment that's incongruent with health, your body's not going to function properly and you're not going to win the game. And that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to win the game, right? We're trying to win the game of life. We're trying to run the race to win the game. And that's what really this show is all about. So let's get into some of these articles, right? This is vitamin D and autoimmunity. Vitamin D in autoimmunity, molecular mechanisms, and therapeutic potential. This is in Frontiers in Immunology, January 2017, Volume 7, Article 697. And the reason that I read those things is because I want it to be very clear where I'm getting this information from so that someone's like Dr. Clemmons is just making all that stuff up, right? Nope, I'm not making it up. I just don't have a lab to run all these things and handle all these things. But I want you to know where they come from so that if you need to cite them, you can go back and you can cite them and you can look them up yourself. And this one is from the Netherlands, actually. It is spanning 26 pages of this article listing 248 references. So these people have done their work, right? So the prevalence of autoimmunity is increasing in the Western countries. This review explores the advances in both clinical trials and molecular studies for the use of vitamin D is managing patients with autoimmune disease. And so it was really cool. I like the way they started this article because there's they go through the steps of exactly how we make vitamin D. Like we hear a lot about, well, we need to get out in the sun, right? And so I just want to kind of go through these steps because it kind of it I think knowledge is key. I think it helps us make great decisions for our health, right? So sun, ultraviolet B, light, and supplements are only precursors to the active form of vitamin D. So the first thing that happens is our skin contains a molecule called, it doesn't matter. It's a your skin contains a molecule, provitamin D3, which absorbs ultraviolet light, which is UVB, wavelength 290 to 319, and that's the wavelength, right? So you've got this little provitamin D3, which is a molecule inside your skin which absorbs light, sunlight, ultraviolet B. Okay. Then the second step is the absorption of the ultraviolet light by this provitamin D3 produces previtamin D3 within the skin cells. So now we're taking it, we're converting it, and now it's inside the skin cells. Our body heat converts previtamin D3 into vitamin D3 with the skin cell. This is the same molecule as supplemental vitamin D3. So this is where they end up being the same right there. So our body heat converts previtamin D3 into vitamin D3 within the skin cell. So we're still in the skin and we've already converted this thing a couple times. The vitamin D3 exits the skin cell into the bloodstream and travels, carried by vitamin D binding protein, to the liver where it is converted into 25 hydroxy vitamin D. Now, I've had a few comments about you get technical and my brain turns off. One of my little ladies told me that today in Littlefield. She's like, I've been trying to follow you, but man, sometimes it's overloaded. Just follow it, go back, run it back, hit the rewind and watch it again, and run it back again, and hit the rewind and watch it again. Because I think it's awesome that when you finally get it, you'll understand it. Basically, our body takes the vitamin D3 and takes it to our liver, and our liver converts it into another form of vitamin D3. And then that 25 hydroxy vitamin D3 then leaves the liver and goes into the bloodstream again, carried by vitamin D binding protein to the kidney. And now the kidney makes the active form of vitamin D, which is called 1,25 dihydroxy vitamin D. So when you get your blood test done, and you look on your blood test and you see that 1,25 dihydroxy vitamin D, that is the active form of vitamin D that was discovered by Dr. Hollick. That is actually the active form of vitamin D. So the vitamin D has to go through your skin. Goes through your bloodstream to your liver. The liver converts the vitamin D into another form of vitamin D, and then it goes through the bloodstream to the kidney, and the kidney converts that to the active form of vitamin D. The active form of vitamin D circulates throughout the body, binding to receptors in the nucleus of cells and influences gene expression. So now your vitamin D levels are influencing your genetic expression. And in the world that we live in the world of wellness, we call that epigenetics. Because a lot of times, I heard it yesterday. I have a young girl that's on blood pressure medication. I said, "Why are you on blood pressure medication?" And she said, "Well, my mom's on blood pressure medication, and both my siblings are on blood pressure medication. Just it's genetic." And I was like, okay, maybe it's epigenetic. Maybe all of y'all are putting yourself in an environment that's causing your body to increase your blood pressure, right? So that's one of the things that we don't. I hope that's helpful right there to kind of understand it. And so it also helps me when we talk about how when I say, well, you got to keep your liver healthy. It's like it's super important to keep your liver healthy, and you know what? Fructose is only metabolized in the liver. So whenever you drink orange juice, and that's what sugar is here, that's coming from the orange juice. Whenever you drink high fructose corn syrup, whenever you're drinking alcohol, you're getting all that fructose going to your liver and being metabolized in your liver. And when all that fructose goes into your liver and is metabolized in your liver starts getting clogged up and it starts malfunctioning. And when your liver starts malfunctioning, there's all kinds of things that start. And one of the things that you could disrupt is the conversion into that form of vitamin D that gets kicked back out and goes to the kidneys, right? So now your immune system doesn't function right. Now your bones don't function right. Now calcium doesn't get absorbed through your gut lining like it's supposed to, because that's one of the major things that vitamin D does for us, right? So there's lots of things that could go wrong whenever we're not that it's like it all stacks together. All these things stack together. It's like take my vitamin D and drink high fructose corn syrup. It's ugh. You got to convert that vitamin D that you take in your liver. You got to get a healthy liver in order to make sure that your body's functioning properly. We're coming up on a break. We'll be right back on the radio. I'm going to stay with you on the Facebook and YouTube and X. So I got a message here from Debbie. My friends and family thank me for sharing your video last night. We're trying to win. Thank you for all your efforts. That's exactly right. And thanks, Debbie. Um, Debbie and Zay, they're all about wellness. They're all about trying to win. They're all about trying to get their families healthy. They're all about trying to get their church healthy. Zebby, I mean Zebby. That's what you get when you mix Zay and Debbie. Debbie was telling me this weekend how she actually had to take RX bars and some and different protein bars to church with them and set them out at their church so that because they have a bunch of tables that are set out and most of them are always filled with donuts. And it's like, yeah, the church and school are the those are two horrible places to eat, right? It's a super interesting thing that we do to ourselves, how we feed ourselves at church and school, and we feed ourselves high sugar foods, and then we pray the Lord to please bless our diabetes. It's like I just wonder if the Lord just shakes his head sometimes, like, well, maybe if y'all wouldn't eat those donuts, you wouldn't get that diabetes, right? And so I know Debbie's all about it. She's working hard. She was working out yesterday morning here in the office, and she's the one of the ones that come out. Her and Zay come work out at 6 a.m. and they're a big part of her practice. And so I know that they're out there working hard and they're trying to share their knowledge. And Debbie's been working through it for quite a while now about because Zay went through some health problems and conquered them and won the game and now moved on with it. So he had a pretty big deal that he was facing, and so it's really cool what they've learned. And so David's always bringing me information that's teaching me about stuff too. So, and I know she's trying to help people as well. And what's also interesting is that like today I had a little girl that I adjusted in Littlefield, and I was asking her about her day at school. I guess she's maybe kindergarten or first grade, maybe kindergarten, I think. And I asked her, did she learn anything at school today? And what are the things that she did? Did she have recess and did she have lunch? And she was like, yes. And I said, well, did they feed you anything good? And she was like, she didn't know how to answer that question. And her mom says, we take our lunch usually. And I was like, yeah, isn't it funny how the food that we eat at church and the food that we eat at school um, are really incongruent with health and wellness. Maybe one day we could get that changed. And maybe tomorrow night, because we're going to break down the book Spark tomorrow night. So it's going to be a really cool, and there's a good story about a school district that actually did change the way that they function and got exercise into their school district and did amazing things with their school. So it's a really cool book. Okay, everybody, we're back on the radio. We're at 98.7 FM, Walk by Faith Radio, and you can if you're listening to us, you got us. So it's awesome that that you're listening to us tonight. What real quickly before we get into the rest of this for the rest of the show, tomorrow night's show is our book review show on Wednesday nights, and this week we're going to break down the book Spark by Dr. John Ratty, and um, it's a super good book. It's an older book. I've had it for a long time. I think the copyright is 2008, but there's lots of information in the book about nutrition, not about nutrition, about exercise, and um, Dr. Ratty has written several books on Alzheimer's and on attention deficit disorder and exercise, and he's a huge fan. He's a really big fan of exercise, and this is a super good book. So tomorrow night, we're going to break it down. It's going to be about exercise and how it helps your brain, helps your body, and helps you learn better, helps you avoid things like Alzheimer's disease, like one of the most important things, which goes along with the book that we broke down a couple of weeks ago, which was The End of Alzheimer's. And so if you haven't seen that show, you can go back and watch that show there. Um, so let's get back into it. And we're talking about vitamin D, right? Because we're saying, what are some of the things that we could do to give ourselves the best chance not to let a virus hurt us? And is it only a vaccine? Is that the only option we have? If you want to take a vaccine, it's your deal. It's not within my scope. I don't handle vaccines. It's not my deal. I'm not interested in them. I don't have anything to do with them. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It sure doesn't have anything to do with wellness, right? And so what we're talking about tonight is wellness. So now that we've gotten that vitamin D, we've gone through that entire process. We've gotten that vitamin D that's been converted. It's gone to the liver. The liver converted it, sent it over to the kidney. The kidney converted it. Now we've got that active form of vitamin D that's actually docking with the receptor in the nucleus inside the cell, which is now changing gene expression. It's telling the genes, do you have one of the things it does, one of the things that nutrients does is it tells the body whether or not it has enough resources to expand and fight, grow, develop, right? That's kind of what we learned in the End of Alzheimer's book. The body wants to know, okay, how many resources do I have? Do I have plenty of resources? Do I have plenty of do I have all the things I need to express myself at the highest level, right? And that's one of those things. If you've got low vitamin D levels and you're not that active form of vitamin D, or if you got low vitamin D levels and you can't convert it into the active form of vitamin D, and you're not getting that vitamin D to those receptors on that nucleus, then your body doesn't know that you have enough resources in order to function optimally, right? Because your body's missing out on that information. And so it's going to start to conserve. I mean, think about it. If you had $100 in your bank account that was going to last you to the end of this month, would you go to the finest steakhouse in your town and get a big old steak for supper? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't go do that, right? Because you're like, I've got $100. It's the 19th. I still got 11 days before we get to the end of this month, and there's no way I'm going to make it on. I gotta conserve everything, right? So if you've got $100 in your bank account, you've got to conserve. You got to shrink. You got to get down to only the things that are important to get you through the next 11 days, right? But what if I put $100,000 in your bank account? If I put $100,000 in your bank account and you thought to yourself, hey, it'd be nice to go get a steak tonight, you wouldn't care 1 second, right? You would just go get it. And you wouldn't even think about it. You'd just be like, sure, let's go get a steak. That sounds fabulous. Doesn't affect you one bit, right? Well, our bodies kind of do that same thing with nutrition. When our bodies have plenty of nutrition and they have all the vitamins and minerals they need, and they have all of those electrolytes that they need, and they have all those things, right? The body knows, hey, I'm in a good state. I can take on the world. I can do all the things that I want to do. I got plenty of resources here. I can get after it. Like I can really make a difference in the world out there. I can really get after it. And that's one of the things that vitamin D will do for us right there. If we get that vitamin D, if we get our levels up high enough, then we can actually tell our cells, our genetics, "Hey, go get it. We got plenty. You don't have to worry about it. We're in great shape," right? And so what is that? What would that be, right? And it's really the argument of how much you need is very interesting. It's more than 30, between 40 and 60 when you get your NGs per milliliter. That's what you're looking for your vitamin D. You'll on your vitamin D, if you take your vitamin D in your blood work, that's what you're looking for right there, right? But there's really I have never seen any, unless you have some sort of parathyroid or thyroid problem, I have never seen any problem with get your vitamin D all the way up to 100. And everything that I've read, you can sure enough do that. Last time I checked my vitamin D, I think it was 79. And so, no problem about how much you can take. There's all kinds of information about how much you can take. We take 5,000 IUs a day to 10,000 IUs a day, depending. Once we get to this time of year where we start to lose that ultraviolet B light, or if we're not out there in the sun enough, then we would increase that, and when we would check it and make sure that we have it. So I'm going to go through some of the things that vitamin D is important for. So the role of vitamin D goes beyond the regulation of calcium homeostasis and bone health. So that's the first thing that everybody thinks about. It tells us how we're going to absorb calcium through our intestine if we have the vitamin D, right? But vitamin D is important in the modulation of the immune system. Autoimmune diseases, including rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and Crohn's disease, results from an aberrant activation of the immune system, whereby the immune system is directed against harmless self-antigens. This results in inflammation, tissue damage, and loss of function of the affected organs or joints, right? An autoimmune disease. And in my world, an autoimmune disease is misnamed. It doesn't, it's not proper because your body doesn't mistakenly attack itself. That's what they try to teach us. Well, you got an autoimmune disease where your body mistakenly attacked itself. I don't think your body makes that kind of mistake. I think your body's purposely attacking itself for some reason. We just haven't defined exactly what that reason is that your body's attacking itself. And so that's that's just a it's my own Jason Clemmons philosophical difference on that whole autoimmune. But there's high prevalence of vitamin D deficiency in patients suffering from autoimmunity. The active form of vitamin D initiates its signaling cascade by binding to the vitamin D receptor, which is a nuclear receptor. We said that already. The best known function of the active form of vitamin D is the maintenance of calcium homeostasis by facilitating the absorption of calcium in the intestine, right? We said that. When active form of vitamin D levels are low, calcium will be mobilized from the bone rather than from the intestine. So if we got to get calcium from something, and we need the calcium in order to function, we just don't need too much of it, right? Then we got to get it from somewhere. So we may start pulling it from the bone because we can't get it from the gut because our vitamin D level is too low, right? Then we could end up with an osteoporosis type of issue. And it's like, oh, wow, that's interesting, right? So vitamin D was used to treat bacterial infections such as tuberculosis for antibiotics before antibiotics were discovered. Vitamin D receptors are expressed in almost all human cells. That's super important because of the fact that vitamin D is expressed in almost all human cells, that means it has a massive effect to all kinds of different parts of the body. Vitamin D deficiency has now been linked to not only bone health, but also cancer, cardiovascular disease, and autoimmune diseases. Vitamin D receptors are found on blood lymphocytes, allowing vitamin D to influence the immune system and immune related diseases. That's important. Virtually all immune cells express vitamin D receptors, making them susceptible to active form of vitamin D mediated modulation, which just means that if all the cells have a receptor, like a doorbell, like your house has a doorbell, right? And if I come up and ring the doorbell, I can create I can create activity inside your house. If I come up and ring your doorbell, you might hide, you might come answer the door. You got a ring doorbell, you might answer the ring and talk to me, but there's gonna be some sort of activity that's initiated inside the cell whenever the receptor is activated, right? And what this is saying is you've got vitamin D receptors on almost every single cell in your entire body. So if you've got that many receptors in your body, then you've got lots of activity that can be used from vitamin D. So if you're going to prepare your body to go back to our sentence, right? To give your body the ability to keep a virus from causing you harm, well, one of the things that you would want to do is make sure that you have proper vitamin D level, right? Does that I hope that makes some sense. I hope that makes a little bit of sense right there, right? Vitamin D receptors are found on got that already. Early evidence suggests that low vitamin D increases the risk of autoimmune diseases. So, next to UV exposure, vitamin D can also be obtained from dietary sources and supplements. And I know there's arguments about that in this town, but I'm going with it anyway. These authors present the literature evidence for vitamin D supplementation in the treatment and prevention of the following diagnoses: Crohn's disease, diabetes type 1, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. If you think about those things, like I got diagnosed with MS. I'm pretty sure this is a true statement. Not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that I learned when I was in school that the closer you are to the equator, the less prevalent MS is. Multiple sclerosis happens furthest away from the equator. The further you get from the equator, there's a increased prevalence of multiple sclerosis. That's interesting. That's interesting because one of the things that might be prevalent is low vitamin D levels, right? The people next to the equator are getting the most sunshine, and they're the ones that are able to handle that better than people who are away from the equator, right? Immune cells, including monocytes, dendritic cells. Remember, we talked about dendritic cells last night. Macrophages, B cells, and T cells can convert the 25-OHD3, the inactive precursor forms of vitamin D, into active forms of vitamin D, allowing local regulation of concentrations of active forms of vitamin D at the site of inflammation, and illustrates an important role for cells of the immune system in the systemic effects of vitamin D. I think that's enough, really. Like, I think that's enough. Maybe not. We could just keep going. We could keep going on vitamin D, and I could talk about that for another 4 or 5 shows, probably. Right? It's super important. It's super important to take your vitamin D. Vitamin D levels, the inactive precursor from vitamin D. The guidelines are this. So this one right here says less than 20 ng per milliliter is deficient. Insufficiency is 20 to 30, and sufficient is greater than 30. However, these numbers do not apply to optimum immunity, which require much higher levels. It should be noted that active form of vitamin D does not merely work as an anti-inflammatory agent. Instead, it assists in maintaining the balance between pro and anti-inflammatory states, and is thereby able to restore the disturbed balance that is associated with autoimmunity. So, what we're talking about is one of the things that can help you be healthier and handle your environment is to take your vitamin D, right? So, it helps with inflammation. So, let's talk about what inflammation is. And we talked about it. We've talked about it before, right? But let's go into it again, because what did we talk about last night? We talked about the calcium magnesium ratio, the magnesium calcium ratio, right? And it needs to be at least 0.2. If you're looking at your magnesium calcium ratio, magnesium is 2/10 of calcium. And what do we always talk about? We get a lot of information about how much calcium we need to increase. And it's like, I don't think so. I don't think we need to increase our calcium. We need to make sure we have sufficient calcium, but that's enough. We don't need to get this massive amount of calcium. And what we do need to make sure that we get is the magnesium, right? Now we understand that we need to get our vitamin D levels up. That's super important. So let's talk about inflammation again, because it just comes back over and over and over again, right? There's always there's always a chance that we could talk about inflammation. So this is anti-inflammatory properties of diet, role in healthy aging. It's in the journal Biomedicines, July 30th, 2021, volume 9, number 8, article 922. And this comes to us from authors from the University of Valencia, Spain, German Institute of Human Nutrition, the University of Potsdam in Germany. It cites 125 references. So it's just talking about it's talking about inflammation, right? And we've talked about this multiple times on the show. If you go back to our Facebook page and you click on photos, you can scroll back to 2020 when all this mess was going on in the first place, and you can find this exact thing, which is talking about the arachidonic acid that we talked about in our other show, right? Arachidonic acid, through a series of COX enzymes and LOX enzymes, ends up with series 2 prostaglandins or series 4 leukotrienes, which are both inflammatory. So when we have high levels of arachidonic acid, then we have inflammation. The EPA, through COX enzymes and LOX enzymes, ends up with series 3 prostaglandins and series 5 leukotrienes, and those are anti-inflammatory. So your fish oil is anti-inflammatory, and your high omega-6 things are inflammatory. And a little bit of omega-6s are fine. You just don't want to have massive amounts of omega-6s. And so the inflammation is a physiological process involved in the defense of the body and the repair of tissues. One of the things that I would like to present tonight, and I would like for you to think about, is that inflammation is the beginning stage of the immune response. It's the first thing that's going to happen with the immune response. So think about that. Just stop for a second and think about that. Inflammation means that your immune system is responding to something. So why does your immune system respond to things? Well, it responds when you're being threatened or you're being attacked, right? That's what your immune system is trying to do for you. Like if it feels like you've been injured, if it feels like you're under some sort of attack, your immune response kicks in, which is inflammation. So maybe that's a level of stress that we don't ever think about. Maybe we don't really understand that, oh, wait, inflammation that could be a stress response right there, right? It is acutely activated by infections, trauma, toxins, or allergic reactions. Inflammation plays a prevalent role in aging. It makes you get old, right? Chronic inflammation can end up stimulating the development of diseases such as cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, neurological disease, or cancer. During aging, inflammation becomes increasingly more chronic. The older you get, the more inflamed you get. Inflammation is a term which refers to the chronic inflammatory state associated with aging in mammals. Okay, diet influences systemic markers of inflammation like IL-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha and C-reactive proteins, right? You've heard of that before. Your C-reactive protein is high. What does that mean? It means you have high levels of inflammation, right? Certain foods have pro-inflammatory activity, and certain diets have anti-inflammatory activity. And I'm just reading this from the article, right? Pro-inflammatory foods include sugars, refined carbohydrates, omega-6 fats, and chemicals. Sugars, just like we talked about right here in our Grande Pumpkin Cream Cold Brew, 31 grams of sugar. 31 grams of sugar causes inflammation. Inflammation decreases your immune system function. Sugar decreases immune system function. If you're trying to put your body in a state to handle a virus, why would you want to decrease your body's ability to handle the virus by eating sugar? When I got COVID in 2019, I'm almost 100% certain that I got COVID because we went to Las Vegas and we ate ice cream for like 3 or 4 days. It was Leslie's birthday and it was her 50th birthday. We went to Las Vegas. I ate ice cream for 3 or 4 days in a row, which was stupid. I don't do that anymore. But back in the day, I used to do that. And I did that, and I came home, and about a week later, maybe 10 days later, I end up with COVID. Had 102 fever for 11 days, right? What did I do to myself? Put myself in an environment that weakened my immune system and allowed myself to get attacked by that virus and take me down for a few days. It didn't take me out. It just took me down for a few days. So that's super important. Anti-inflammatory foods include fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, carotenoids, flavonoids, and more, right? So that's just some of the things that we've talked about right there. Eat your vegetables. When you eat your vegetables and you eat lots of plants, you get lots of fiber. That's one of the way that's the main way that you get fiber. And omega-3 fatty acids. Take your fish oil. And then there you go. Take magnesium. I think every single patient that's come into the office for our nutritional evaluation, I've recommended for them to take magnesium and their fish oil. And it's really surprises me how many people just don't take fish oil. It's like it's 2023. By the time this is all over, we'll have way more people taking their fish oil. Promise you. Yeah. Abdominal and visceral obesity has tripled in the U.S. population in the last 40 years, and estimations predict a worldwide obesity rate of 1.12 billion by 2030. Only 5 to 10% of cancers is caused by genetics, according to this, whereas 90 to 95% arise due to environmental factors and lifestyle, the diet we regularly consume, right? When we get those cancers, and I know there are some of them, and look, childhood cancers will break your heart. And I know people that have had that problem. I am not by any means trying to be insensitive about that at all, right? I'm talking about the things that might be controlled by your diet and making sure that you have an anti-inflammatory diet. You might be able to control some of the cancers that we get, right? Only 5 to 10% of those cancers are caused by genetics. 5 different locations worldwide, considered the blue zones, you've probably heard of them before, have concentrations of centurions that is higher than usual. They have more people over 100 than other places, right? And so these blue zones, as we know of them, these populations have diets that are mostly plant-based, tend to eat fish regularly, and have moderate wine consumption. Yeah, I'm not sure about that wine deal still, but it's on the list, so I'll let it go right there, right? The authors list 4 anti-inflammatory diets, and the traditional Chinese diet, fruits and vegetables, and fish. The dietary patterns and nutritional components of the Chinese diet have changed considerably from the 80s, becoming increasingly more westernized. The consumption of refined grains, red meat, and I'm going to say red meat that's fed refined grains, processed meats, and sugar sweetened beverages has increased. And furthermore, frying is more used for cooking than traditional boiling or steaming. Consequently, the prevalence of chronic non communicable diseases, including obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer, have increased. That's just in the Chinese traditional diet, right? When they went from eating fruits and vegetables and fish, which is high in omega-3s, and they started eating more of our Western refined carbohydrate diets, right? Then they ended up getting some of the same diseases that we have. It's like, well, that's interesting, right? The Mediterranean diet, you've heard of that, right? Olive oil, fruits and vegetables, fish, and seafood. The Mediterranean diet was passed on through generations before the globalization of the food system. The Mediterranean diet is described in civilizations that surround the Mediterranean Sea because they share common foods and cooking methods. Olive oil is especially emphasized due to its ability to reduce the free radicals and prevention of inflammation-related diseases due to its compounds. The protective role shown by Mediterranean diet is due to its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory components, right? The people that live to be 100 on the planet keep their inflammation down and consume lots of fish. Now, we out here in West Texas live in dirt, right? It's hard to get a lot of fresh fish out here because we're not living on an island someplace. So, what would a person do if they couldn't eat a bunch of fish? They might take their fish oil. That would be the substitute for the fish, right? So, if we can't eat the fish, then we can eat the fish oil. The Nordic diet, fruits, vegetables, and fruits, and then the Japanese traditional diet, which is fruits, vegetables, and fish. Yeah, fish. That's what we've got. So, hey, we're up against the time. We're going to continue this tomorrow night. We're going to talk about Spark. We're going to talk about exercise. It's going to be a great show. And thank you guys for listening to the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback that we're getting. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. This is what we do all day long at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And we're really trying to help people live healthier lives. And we want it to be as optimal as we can and do that. So anything I could do for you, just give us a call. You can send us a text, 806-794-0400, and we will take care of you. You guys have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow night and go over Spark.